Welcome to the Brandon's Brain podcast. This is our inaugural episode, so pretty exciting. This is a project that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and it is super exciting that I finally reached this point. I always have stuff that I think about and want to talk about, and sometimes I don't always have somebody to talk to about those things, or rather maybe not always somebody who's willing to listen to those things or find those things interesting. So I'm thinking that somebody out there will, and I just know that too. This will be fun. I just think that this will be a good place for me to park some of those things and bounce them off of other people too. The point of this podcast is not just for me to be ranting every single week. Hopefully we start a community, we start a dialogue, we're able to talk about different things. Point two about what to expect from this podcast. It's literally me throughout my week writing down thoughts that I've had or things that I think will be interesting. I tend to consume a good amount of media, and I like watching things. So we'll usually have something in there about what I watched that week and what I thought. And then just whatever other kind of thoughts that I have going on that week. And I'm writing them down up until the day that I'm recording the episodes, because this is the inaugural episode and I had meant to start this a couple weeks back. There may be a couple of things that aren't exactly from the last week that are carryover from that. But for the most part, I'll try to just keep it current about what's going on. So the Emmys took place on Sunday night, and I wanted to talk about them. Now, I just want to say I forgot that they were on, so I did not watch them. So this is all basically some hearsay article. I read an article that said who the winners. I'm not here to shit on the Emmys or say that they're not worthwhile or shit on award shows as generally, but I do want to acknowledge that they are usually very biased, and I don't think that they represent necessarily what's the best art in the world. I think that they represent a bunch of other complex things that have to do with the industry at large, with who you know and who's on the top of everybody's lists and who's bringing in the most money. That kind of stuff, I think, all plays into it. So yes, I just want to say that this is a really ignorant opinion. It's also biased because when I was looking at most of the shows that got nominated this year, I haven't watched most of them. So I think I've literally watched 2 or 3 of them. So it's really quite an ignorant opinion that I have here. One of my favorite shows this year so far has been The Studio, an A24 production. They kill it. They just kill it within such a short amount of time too. They came up with such a distinct way. As soon as a A24 film starts, I feel like, if you've seen them before, you've seen maybe 2 or 3 of them before, then you're instantly sort of familiar with what world or type of world you're stepping into when you watch any movies from or TV shows from them. Not to say that they're all the same in any way at all. They aren't, but there's an A24 vibe that's there. And I think that's I love them. Some of my favorite things ever have been put out by them. Anyways, what I was saying, my favorite show this year so far has been The Studio, and it won all these awards. Seth Rogen has been nominated for 65 awards so far in his career, and he's won 23 of them. This is his first win for acting, though, ever, which is a pretty big deal. And at 43, with a lot of career to go, that still leaves a lot of time for him to keep pursuing roles like this. I think he did really, really well in this more sort of, it's not serious as a comedy show, but it's different from things that he's done before. And I think it's a really great direction for him. I just think that it's cool to see where he's gone in his career. When Seth first showed up on the scene, I thought this, and I do think a lot of other people thought too, that he was going to get pigeonholed into doing those stoner type weed movies for the rest of his career. And that's what he was going to be, the lovable stoner guy. But he has definitely surpassed that. And I think this project particularly is a really solid example of how much he surpassed that. Good for him. I think that Seth Rogen deserves it. All those awards for one show. Anyway, so Best Supporting Actor in a Drama Series went to Tremel Tillman for Severance, and I was upset about this. I'm not going to lie when I saw the results, because I wanted Walton Goggins for The White Lotus, in which he was incredible. I didn't watch Severance. I watched the first episode and I did not want to continue, and it didn't hit for me, but White Lotus has always hit for me. It's one of my all-time favorite shows, I would say. I did have some issues with season 3, and maybe that's a good for my other series that I'm doing on this channel, which is media reviews. I think that maybe The White Lotus season 3 would be a good future topic. But his performance in that was just phenomenal. I was upset, but then I also learned that Tremel winning this award was historical. So he is the first Black actor to win Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series. And he's gay too. So a gay Black man winning an award like that it's obviously well deserved. I'm genuinely happy for this man, even though I don't know who he is. One thing that I thought was kind of strange, and maybe this is just a thing that they normally do in the Emmys, but Best Supporting Actress in a Drama Series, all the women, so Carrie Coon, Parker Posey, Natasha Rothwell, and Amy Lou Wood from season 3 of White Lotus were nominated for the same award, which I find, it just seems like maybe they were all the votes tied for them, and that's why they ended up in there. I would think that maybe there'd be some sort of way to, if there's 4 actors from shows, the same show nominated, why wouldn't they just say, okay, out of these 4, who gets the most votes? And then that's the one person for that show. Then maybe another show gets to show up on there instead of having the same show show up. Or maybe there's not a limit, so it doesn't matter. I don't know how the voting works. Maybe somebody else does and can let me know in the comments. I just thought that was kind of weird that all 4 of them were nominated. So then we go to Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, and it went to Jeff Hiller for a show called Somebody Somewhere. Again, did not see the show, do not know who Jeff Hiller is actually nominated in this category. We had Ike Barinholtz for The Studio. We had Coleman Domingo for The Four Seasons, Harrison Ford for Shrinking, Jeff Hiller for Somebody Somewhere, Eben Moss Bachrach for The Bear, and if I butchered that name, oops, Michael Urie for Shrinking, and then this is who I thought should have won, just because I'm a huge fan, but Bowen Yang for Saturday Night Live. The Moo Dang alone. I just feel like that performance, that outfit, and that wasn't the only, he was really incredible in this past season, but again, didn't see the other stuff. Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, we had, I'm probably gonna butcher this one, Hannah Einbinder Hacks. Oh, Hannah Einbinder won for the TV show Hacks. her last name's not Einbinder Hacks, and I don't even know if that's how you say that. Einbinder, I don't know. Anyways, that's who won. Other nominees were Liza Colon-Zayas for The Bear, Catherine Hahn for The Studio, Janelle James for Abbott Elementary, Catherine O'Hara for The Studio, Cheryl Lee Ralph for Abbott Elementary, and Jessica Williams for Shrinking. And again, super bias because the show was my favorite this year. I do think that Catherine O'Hara should have won. All right, then we go to Best Talk Series, which I don't understand the cancellation of the Colbert Show. I don't, especially given the Emmy win. I mean, he obviously has the support of the people. I don't know if it's about numbers or something else. I've heard both things. I've heard that there may be some other nefarious reasons going on behind the scenes that the show is canceled. And then I've heard that it's because of numbers. Obviously, late night TV isn't super relevant right now at all. you could make this podcast late night TV if you wanted to. And there's millions of others like it to serve every single little niche that you could possibly want to serve. They are definitely a holdover. One of the last holdovers from the monoculture era. That, and later on in the episode, we're going to talk about terrestrial radio because I had some thoughts on that and related to monoculture. Late night TV is one of the last few, but it's not like people are talking about what happened on the Daily Show last night. I mean, or on Colbert last night. They're not relevant in any kind of significant way anymore. There's many streamers who are much more relevant. If they're not streamers, then YouTubers, podcasters. So maybe podcasters, then streamers, then no, podcasters, YouTubers, streamers. And that could be totally wrong, but that's the order that my brain would try to logically sort them into in terms of, without looking it up, the amount of people who return to listen to those things. Anyways, Colbert won. I think it was well deserved. I don't know if it's the first time or not, but over the other two shows too, The Daily Show and Jimmy Kimmel, which are both The Daily Show, I don't even know what the hell is going on with it. It seems like it's sad. They still don't have a regular host since Trevor Noah left. I think that they still are in a bit of a crisis. Honestly, they're an existential one of sorts where they're not really sure what they're supposed to do with the property or how they're supposed to continue. I think maybe the executives were hoping that maybe Jon Stewart would love hosting Mondays so much that he would just decide to come on and host all 5 days a week again. And maybe that didn't work out because they're still swapping around the staff members of The Daily Show are still switching hosting duties. Looking this up yesterday, an article that I was reading said that The Daily Show it said something about Jon Stewart, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, or it said it on The Daily Show featuring Jon Stewart or something like that, where it was very much, he's the guy in charge of the whole thing. I don't know. I just, it was The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. And now I'm like, it's The Daily Show with Jon Stewart one day a week. And I just feel like they need to just get a regular host and stop trying to milk the Jon Stewart thing. I mean, maybe some people need him. I do appreciate his rants at times, but also, again, going back to the cultural relevance and cachet. And it's not that if somebody doesn't have cultural relevance or cachet, they have nothing to say. Hello. I pointed at myself for those just listening. They're holding on to something, and the people who are continuing to tune in and watch him are holding on to something through him, or they're holding on to him as a means of safety and security right now. It's just a lot of people want to hold on to what Jon Stewart was for the Bush administration, but this is not the Bush administration. And we love Jon Stewart. Yes. Yeah. He had a chance with his Apple TV show called The Problem with Jon Stewart. That show was canceled in October 2023 after 2 seasons. They gave him 2 chances to make something that gripped people. And you could say, oh, it's because it was on Apple TV Plus. Even the clips and stuff, like the Daily Show clips used to go viral. I mean, as much as they could then in the early 2000s with early internet, early YouTube. It's still, as long as the Daily Show, even with Trevor Noah, when he first came on at the beginning of the Trump years, the Trevor Noah videos were huge, millions and millions of views, and people would share them and talk about them and all of that stuff. The Daily Show had its chance to come back and be a relevant force within the culture. It failed. And then for Comedy Central then to decide, oh, what we need is to bring Jon Stewart back on Mondays. That's not going to save the Daily Show, y'all. Like, what's wrong with you? They canceled his show at Apple after 2 seasons. Do you think that if the show was successful and it was going well, that they would have done that? No, they wouldn't have. They would still have the problem with Jon Stewart on their network, and they don't. And so Comedy Central then bringing him back I just feel like it's a temporary fix until, like, what happens when Jon Stewart gets tired of doing the Daily Show again and he doesn't even want to do it on Mondays? Then what are they going to do? Then they're going to continue to use the staff members and rotate them out, not giving any one of them the chance to be the person. Like, it's not, I don't know. I think that, like, splitting, that's a huge role. Obviously, the person who has that job has the potential. Like I said, we talk about Trevor Noah and what role he served at the beginning of the Trump administration, and it was huge. Jon Stewart helped many people get through the Bush administration and was hugely influential during that time period. And so if they want to have somebody else step in and keep that show and that property running, they need to get somebody else in who can start building that trust. And it just doesn't make sense to me why they're not giving somebody that opportunity. That's a major opportunity to have your name, The Daily Show, with, and it's that one person on that line. It doesn't seem fair to keep splitting that between a bunch of people. They should just give it to one person and stop trying to milk the name of Jon Stewart just because he's a trusted person. We need to move on. You know, our culture has a definitely, I mean, and we're going to talk about this a little later in the podcast when we get to the movies section. We're in this crisis right now or at least the executives or whoever the hell is in charge of producing our media is in a crisis about, or they're too scared or something, where we can't move forward. We can't get new ideas. We can't fail, basically. It's like they're too scared to fail, or that a failure would devastate them in some kind of way. These studios have a lot of money, and the fact that they're not willing to take risks on artists anymore is really frustrating, because I think about all the movies and the TV shows that could be getting made, and maybe TV shows isn't, because TV shows are cheaper, so we do get a lot more of those. But the frustration there is that if it's not a smash hit after season one, it's gone. And that's it. And you're never going to see it again. I don't know who this is benefiting. Like, who is the system benefiting? And at the end, if all of this stuff that's being produced is for us, the end consumer, to be entertained, then erasing our voice completely and just continuing to do whatever, wherever the money is taking. I know that there's a lot of people who are frustrated with it, but I guess not enough to make it change yet. Okay, we will move on here. Best scripted variety series and best writing for a variety series went to my boy John Oliver. So I am a weekly John Oliver consumer. I have been for a long time. I love the show. I think he's funny. Sometimes he's very cringe, but for the most part, it's funny. And I think this season in particular, the writing has been, I think I've cringed way less this season than I have in a long, maybe ever, honestly. And that's, now that I'm actually thinking about that, that's a really good sign, and it speaks to the writing. Congratulations to him and the entire writing staff that he has. He's just the face of a much larger team who makes him funny, or allows him to be funny. So yeah, congrats to them. All right, so then best writing for a drama series went to this guy, Dan Gilroy, for Andor. I haven't seen Andor. Okay, I'll say that. I also haven't seen The Pit, Severance, or Slow Horses, but I think that the fact that one guy, Mike White, writes The White Lotus, that's one dude who has all that stuff, all that dialogue, all those scenarios between all those people, those complicated stories that are intertwined, and all the different nuances that go into all the different characters. I get that that's what everybody does when they write a TV show, but I just think that the way that Mike White does it resonates with me in a way that a lot of shows haven't. That's my winner, is basically what I'm trying to say. Outstanding live variety special. The SNL 50 anniversary special was very good, but come on. For those on audio, I am showing the image of Kendrick Lamar with all of the folks surrounding him wearing blue, red, and white outfits. It's all Black people laid down over each other to form the American flag, with Kendrick Lamar standing in the middle of it. As good as the 50th anniversary SNL special was, this image is iconic and so powerful. It's incredible. If I look at this and then I think about cultural cachet, what are people going to remember and talk about in the future? I think that they'll talk about this. I think that the SNL 50th anniversary special will, it's there. I don't think people are going to be talking about it in even 2 years from now. But when the Super Bowl comes up, people will talk about the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl halftime show forever. Anyways, then if we, even if the Kendrick Lamar show wasn't on there, then we have Beyonce Bowl on there again with the visuals. Look at this. Stunning. And I don't remember these kinds of visuals from the SNL 50th anniversary special. There was a lot of different celebrity appearances from all the different people who had been on there. They had some of the surviving original cast members were on there. I think that's cool, right? I think that that's awesome, but I don't think that it's quite as iconic as these two performances. We're all done talking about the Emmys now. So let's talk about some movies. This week, I watched Weapons, and stars Ruth from Ozark, as well as Llewellyn Moss from No Country for Old Men. It stuck with me. I don't know, I especially feel like these days, the amount of content that we get, I forget things often, and it really has to stick out for it to stick with me. There's something about this movie. I don't know if it's the way that it's shot or the way that the story unfolds. I would highly recommend it. If you liked, here's what I'll say. If you liked the movie Barbarian, you'll like this movie a lot. And if you haven't seen Barbarian, my God, check that out for sure. That's a great movie. Okay, and so then I had mentioned this earlier that I was going to talk when I was talking about how Hollywood can't come up with new ideas or whatever. I mentioned that when we get to movies, I'm going to talk about something, and that is this. Y'all, to those listening, it's the Freakier Friday poster. Unfortunately, yeah, this movie is awful. I really don't have anything good to say about it. And I know that that's negative, but they didn't need to make this. I don't know who this movie is for. That's what I kept trying to figure out. Who did they make this for? Because I can't imagine that they're trying to make this into some long property that's going to continue, where are they trying to hook Gen Alpha into the Freaky Friday universe, or even Gen Z? I don't understand. And if this was made for millennial nostalgia, it just wasn't good. It was so unnecessary to make this. This took a outstanding Freaky Friday is an amazing movie. It's a pillar of 2000 cinema, I would say. It was essential to anybody living at that time in that age group. It was essential watching. I mean, you didn't miss it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And this, it's a brilliant story. Even though it was a remake, they did such a good job remaking it. I mean, really good quality. And this it's not funny. All of the jokes are really cringe. They consistently have to remind you that you're watching Freakier Friday by making references to the other movie. So if you hadn't seen the other movie before seeing this, there's going to be stuff that you're just going to straight up miss. And I think that that's cool to try to create continuity between sequels, but a lot of sequels assume that people haven't seen the first movie. And I know that seems ridiculous because it's a sequel. There are a lot of sequels where you can watch it without necessarily seeing it. Maybe it's because I don't think that this needed to be made in the first place, but to try to continue that story as if it's like a legacy, they should have just, if they were going to do this, I get that they wanted to expand the universe of it, and that's I don't know. I almost said that's a unique idea, but it's not. It's taking an existing idea that's already been done twice and trying to milk it for something more. I don't think that these performances were all that great either. It seemed like the script was maybe confusing for the actors at certain points, and they did not. I don't know. It felt like they may have been lost at certain points in this. Just bad. I wouldn't recommend watching it. Just don't waste your time. It was also long, it felt like, and maybe that's because I just wanted it to be over. All right. And then I just wanted to say, and this is not sponsored or anything like that, I have a really bad memory, ADHD, and I don't remember. Sometimes if I watch something last week, I won't remember it this week, even if I liked it. And so I use this app. It's called Listy. It'll keep track of everything. I use it to keep track of obviously the movies. I use it to keep track of the TV shows and the books that I've read throughout the year. You can make lists for anything you want. But what's cool about the movies part is you can type it in, and then it has all the movie information in there, what year it was released and all that stuff. It's just a nice way to keep track of things. I mentioned this earlier about monoculture and how late night television is maybe one of the last vestiges of monoculture, but another one is terrestrial radio. I have these old TVs that have radios built into them for art projects. I've used them in art projects in the past, but I have some others that I'm using for upcoming projects. And I don't know. I just wanted to test to see just tune the little knob and flip through the radio like it was the early 2000s or the 90s or something. And I was thinking while I was doing that, the terrestrial radio is even closer than late night TV. It's the closest thing that we have to monoculture now. It's one of the only ways that people who are younger than streaming can experience what it was like before streaming all the time. When I was tuning the knob through terrestrial radio, it's a millennial Gen X boomer nostalgia fest, because they're pretty much the only ones who are still listening to terrestrial radio. And so in that way, scrolling through the radio often sounds like the same radio that was on during the actual monoculture of the 90s. It's an extra way for those who weren't there to sort of experience it in real time. It's just wild to me that there's still, you still can turn on the terrestrial radio. The fact that exists, I just wonder how much longer is that going to exist, or is that always just an inevitable human experience that we're going to have as terrestrial radio? I'm talking about is terrestrial radio still going to exist 10 years from now? Like, is everybody who's being served by it now going to be able to are going to have access to whatever's serving that purpose in the future? And what is that thing going to be too? It's interesting to think about that. Anyways, so the other thing that I thought about this week that I wanted to talk about was, it just seems like it would be so easy for a United States president to fix 3 inefficiencies and just have a massive win. Here's the 3. Legalize weed. And this isn't in a particular order. Okay. So legalize weed, and daylight savings time. The change to daylight savings time, and get rid of the penny. 3 things. Doesn't seem that hard. So I was thinking about that. Why haven't these things happened? There's great support for all these things too, by the way. The majority of voters feel that weed should be legalized at this point federally. The majority of voters feel like we should stop and the daylight savings time. The penny one, I'm not sure if the majority of voters feel that way, but I know there are a lot of people who do feel that way. It costs us more money to make the penny than it's actually worth. Legalizing weed, so why it hasn't happened. Federalism is the first reason. So weed legality is mostly decided state by state. Even if the president wants to legalize it federally, Congress has to act. So it would take them. But and we all know the people who are sitting in Congress are supposed to represent their constituents and what they want, but they don't necessarily always do that. Yeah. So, but if the majority of people feel this way, then the people who are sitting in Congress, if this came up, it would seem to me that they would working in line with what their constituents want. It seems that they would vote yes on this, and then it would be, I don't know. It just seems at this point, with as many states who have legalized it, who are making so much money off of the tax revenue, the fact that the federal government isn't doing that, and we are multi-trillions of dollars in debt as a country, is insane, because it's such an easy win, and would bring in a lot of money. DEA and scheduling. Cannabis is still a Schedule 1 drug, in the same category as heroin. So that's how the feds see weed. Rescheduling or descheduling a drug requires either an act of Congress or a lengthy process through the Department of Justice or the Drug Enforcement Agency. So again, bureaucratic nonsense, and that's essentially the reason there. And that's the government. Then we have lobbying, which is probably the real reason why this hasn't happened. Alcohol industry, big pharma, and private prison industries have all lobbied against legalization, to no surprise. I mean, especially with the latter one, the private prison industries. I mean, it's a huge reason why there's so many people sitting in jail right now, is because of weed. Ridiculous. And just, it's just crazy. I just think about like the lives that the impact, the potential impact, and the loss, that the potential loss that we're experiencing as a whole society, because some of those folks who got arrested for weed, say, I don't know, even 20 years ago, what they could have done in our society, like who they could have been, and all of that, right? And it's really upsetting to think about that. And the fact that there's people who are making money off of that unnecessary suffering, and then continue to lobby politicians and line their pockets in order for that suffering to continue. And again, they're just directly profiting off of it, is absolutely disgusting. Okay, so the last reason is fear-mongering holdovers. A lot of older politicians still buy into reefer madness era bullshit. And I think that's probably, maybe that should have been number one, even above federalism, because I do think that this is a huge result of the fact that we have a federal system that has folks in it who are not at all representative of the ages of people who they're supposed to be representing, not in tune with the issues of those folks, therefore. And yeah, she probably should have just not be doing that job anymore, but they continue to stay there and do that job. So, all right. So point number 2, ending daylight savings time, why it hasn't happened. So federal laws, states can opt out of daylight savings time. We know that, like Arizona and Hawaii, apparently. I knew about Arizona. I didn't know Hawaii too. So, but they can opt out of the time change to permanent daylight without an act of Congress. And it comes down to Congress. Bipartisan support, zero follow through. So the Senate passed the Sunshine Protection Act. I don't know if you all remember that. I sure do. It was a big deal. And it was in 2022. So that unanimously passed in the Senate, the Sunshine Protection Act. And what happened? Why did that not happen? Because the House then never brought it to a vote. Oops. Just more fuckery going on in the government. That's what's going on. Just nonsense. Lobbyists, again, coming up, the lobbying industries, hugely problematic. The retail industries and some big corporations like daylight savings time because it means more daylight hours for shopping. Airlines and broadcasters hate daylight savings time because it messes with schedules and they fight over it behind the scenes. More giant industries, the airline industry, retail industries, big corporations getting their way. running this country as they do. You know how it is in 2025. It's just America's for sale. Everybody's for sale in the government. So they got to do what the people who are buying them want them to do. All right. Point number 3. Get rid of the penny. Why it hasn't happened. Nostalgia and politics, which is just so asinine. Nostalgia, really? People irrationally love the penny, and they fear backlash if they go ahead, and they fear political backlash if they propose getting rid of the penny. And then our friend Mr. Lobbyist comes along once again, and this time it's Mr. Zinc Lobbyist. Mr. Zinc Lobbyist says those pennies are made out of 97.5% zinc. And do you think that Mr. Zinc Lobbyist wants that to go away? Do you think that they want their number one customer, the federal government? They don't want that to go away. So of course they're going to keep lobbying hard to keep the penny. Then there's a rounding fear, apparently. So critics say that eliminating the penny could lead to rounding up prices, even though countries like Canada have already done it and proven it works just fine. Making things a flat dollar amount could make things so much easier. This is the last topic of this week's podcast. And I know I don't even know. This was like a month ago at this point, I feel like. But the Sydney Sweeney campaign, I believe it's still going on. The Great Jeans campaign. I'm only bringing this up again because I was watching season 7, episode 1 of The Office. It's called Nepotism. And it turns out that the writers of The Office, they wrote this campaign. Michael Scott was the original Great Jeans. That's what I wanted to end this week's podcast on, was this little discovery that I made that I thought was kind of funny. Here's the clip.
If there's nothing wrong with this, Michael, why have you been keeping it a secret?
Because I wanted you to come to me and say, wow, he is so great. And I was going to say, well, it's in the jeans. And I was actually going to be wearing jeans. And I'd point to them, right? No, because you ruined it. Right? So...
All right. That's it, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to this inaugural episode of the podcast. We will be back next week. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on new stuff. And I will talk to you all next week. Bye.